Gotta reach inside of me to remember my OC. Let's talk Sonic Fandom on Kirblog. It extra works because the word dumb. Sorry. Welcome, everybody. We're off to a great start. And there goes everybody. So I don't know if y'all heard, but apparently there's something quite interesting about the new Sonic game coming out. By this point, it's old fucking news. All the far bigger, relevant Sonic dedicated YouTube people have already had their fucking reaction videos and discussion videos and whatever. So I'm not going to go into that. I thought about it for a hot minute, but I thought, no, you know what? This triggered a more important conversation, far more important. And so I scrounged around looking for, all right, somebody who really knows and has a lot of history with the Sonic fandom. So I settled for my, I'm very happy to be.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. Luke Cyberlink420 of Sonic Paradox fame, yes, right? And Sonic F.
That is accurate.
Yes. You have not been on a Kirblog in centuries. My God.
It has been around 3.5 years.
That's
like
insane.
The last one we did was in February 2014 when you, Martin, and I all recorded like at 2 a.m. half asleep at Almacon.
Yep. And that was back when I was still limiting myself to only 20 minutes of recording at a time. So that was fun gathering all of our thoughts together in one thing. Well, we didn't really have a whole lot to say because we were so fucking tired.
We were minutes away from just completely passing out, so we wouldn't have made it any longer than 20 minutes anyway.
Yeah, so it worked out. But this time we have all the time in the world to talk about how wonderful the Sonic the Hedgehog fandom is. So
I'm glad we have all that time because, oh boy, there's 15 years of history to go back through.
Oh, I'll bet. So I guess before we get into, because I wanted to talk specifically about kind of the internet stuff in particular, because of kind of the nature of the OC custom hero creator system that is being included in Sonic Forces. By the way, to just give my quick thoughts on that, I'm excited. I think my only thing that I'm sad about is that you can't be a fucking bat because I wanted to be a bat.
The choices are like relatively limited. There's only 7 species to choose from.
Yeah.
It's bat, or it's a bear, bird, cat, dog, hedgehog, wolf, and
bunny,
rabbit.
Yeah. So I'm thinking either bird or bunny, mayhaps one of the two. We'll see.
I'm kind of leaning cat myself. Like, I could bring back my old OC, but I think he needs to stay firmly in the vault, but we'll get there when we get there.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So I guess, well, you know what, to start off with, Luke, remind me again, how old are you?
I am 28 as of about a month ago.
That's right, you are the same age as me. Okay, so
420 blaze it.
So, yeah, I'm sorry we didn't have a fucking Kirblog on your hilarious birthday date. Good. I guess, well, you know, fuck it. Why don't you start? Tell me a little bit about your really, really early days. I suppose the Genesis era, as it were, the early to mid '90s or so, when Sonic first came on the scene, and we had the early original semi trilogy. I say that because CD and Knuckles are both kind of included into the original game, so it's kind of complicated, but nonetheless.
The quote-unquote classic era.
Yes, the classic era. Tell us about your time during those lovely, carefree days of not knowing what the fuck we were in for.
So, knowing me and, my association with Sonic, this may surprise you, Kerr, but I never owned a Sega console growing up.
Okay.
The only Sonic games I owned for many, many years were the PC ports of Sonic 3D Blast and Sonic CD.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played a Sonic game on a computer console. Well, a computer console. On a computer. I've never played a Sonic game on a computer. I tried playing Sonic CD on an iPad like years ago, and that was a fucking
the Taxman port.
And I was no. It was like way a long time ago, and I was like, how the fuck does anybody play a precision platforming game on a fucking iPad? But nonetheless, so was that like when those games were first coming out, or did you not get to a lot of these classics until later?
I mean, that was I think I got those maybe 95, 96. I'd have to double check the timeline, but that sounds about right in my head. I would have been like 7 years old or so.
Okay.
And I already had familiarity with Sonic. My first time playing a Sonic game was Sonic 1 on a babysitter's Genesis when I was 2 years old. And I never got like more than past 1 or 2 acts of Green Hill Zone, but I was enamored. Mm-hmm. And like for many years, I would only basically play Sonic games either on my friend's Genesis or like just store kiosk whenever they would show up. And most of my fandom was for, Adventures of Sonic, SatAM, the cartoons, and occasionally the Archie comics. That was kind of my in. And, I still maintain that 3D Blast is not a very good game, but I think that the PC version is a better version, but, that's neither here nor there.
Well, I would only know because my the Genesis version of the game was my booby prize Christmas present one year when poor Datafer was not able to secure an N64 for the holiday season. But bless his heart, because I was like, oh, cool, it's like Sonic, but it looks like Mario RPG because it's isometric. Oh, God, this is awful. Oh, God, why am I collecting birds? Oh, God, where am I going? Morty. Sorry.
Yeah, but at least the PC version had a better soundtrack and half-pipe special stages. So
half the soundtrack of the Genesis one just fucking got ported over to Adventure 1 anyway, so,
That's true.
Anyway. So you were kind of more by proxy until I'm assuming I assuming is the Dreamcast era of stuff. Is that when you got like really into Sonic?
I mean, I missed out on the Dreamcast era too. Again, I basically only played Sonic Adventure through store kiosks, and Sonic Adventure 2 basically didn't exist to me other than like occasional print ads.
Okay.
The turning point for me was, March of like early 2002 when it's announced, oh, by the way, Sega's gone third party and Sonic's going to be on Nintendo consoles now. And I'm like, the war is over.
So you came back in during that point where a lot of people either came in for the first time or came back in, which was Adventure 2 Battle. Is that right?
Yeah, Adventure 2 Battle was my way back in.
Okay,
and
so
it was
hold on,
kind of also my gateway to the wider Sonic community.
Okay,
we'll get to.
So before we get to that, I want to tell my story because mine starts earlier than yours chronologically. Then I'll just blow through this real quickly. So I let me just go ahead and out myself with my fucking sense of white privilege here. I own both an NES and a Genesis, and I know half the comments are like, "Fuck off! You have one or the other."
I didn't own a video
you
game
rich piece
console.
Of shit.
I didn't own a video game console until the Game Boy Color.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Is like people are like, "You rich piece of shit, having both. You picked one." And I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't up for me to decide. My family had both. Sorry. So the fucking Mario versus Sonic feud was not a thing to me because I wasn't even aware because I was like, I like both. So nonetheless, I grew up with the original Sonic Genesis games. I played Sonic CD once at an arcade. I played the 32X Knuckles Chaotix once at fucking Universal when they had the Sega Dome with all the.
I've still never played
games.
Chaotix unemulated.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, but I still feel like I need to try it at least once.
I think I might have played Knights on a Saturn, and that's my only experience on that. And I played other people's Dreamcast a lot, and quite liked that system. Actually, Dreamcast was good stuff. Yeah. So I played the. Oh, you know what? Actually, I think you know what? Here, let me preface with this, too, because I just always feel this is necessary. I'm sure in this Kirblog I'll be restating Sonic bits of information from my childhood from other Kirblogs in the past, but it's been such a long time anyway that I hope y'all won't mind.
I've completely forgotten, so I don't care.
Oh, well, then that's all the reassurance I need. I played Sonic 3 for the first time at Universal Studios. At Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios, Florida, because they had at the time, of course, this is back when Nickelodeon Studios was a thing at Universal in Florida. They had a game show that was built specifically for people who would tour. It wasn't like Double Dare or whatever. It was just like something specifically for people who would come there from the theme park. And my sister Allison, who of course was on Pete and Pete, was on it and got slimed, and it was hilarious. And I, probably just because, like, oh, we got special treatment because of my sister and all that, I got to go up and play one of the games during the game show, and I got to play Sonic 3 on a giant, well, I was like 5, so it was giant to me.
Comparatively giant.
Yeah, a big screen, and it was my first time seeing Sonic 3, seeing Super Sonic, like, flying over the fucking water, and seeing Knuckles ever, and I'm like, what the fuck is, oh my god, you know, because by this point, my only knowledge is Sonic Tails and Robotnik at the time, and I loved Sonic 1 and 2, but hadn't played 3 or Knuckles or CD or anything, so that's all I really knew. But, you know, in my youth, I had my just kind of, like, I guess, like, private fandom in terms of me and my friends all kind of liked Sonic and we all knew the characters. I had a little more information in terms of just my knowledge base than my friends did, because I watched Sat AM pretty extensively on TV when the Saturday morning Sat AM series with, like, Princess Sally and all the freedom fighters and everything, of course, as it was airing, I think, on ABC, I believe.
Yeah, it was ABC, I'm pretty sure.
So I was kind of semi-following that and renting the couple VHS tapes of that before we got a proper complete series box set of it, you know, ages and ages later. And I also kept up a little bit with the comics, very, like, intermittently, because I didn't know, like, where to find a lot of them. And I remember I really wanted to get into the Sonic comic and, like, collect a lot of it, but I was just kind of picking up random bits here and there. And then I was learning later how much of a clusterfuck it was from people I knew that worked at Archie as the years went by.
I was kind of in a similar boat where I liked the comics, but I didn't really buy them all that often. Usually I would, like, buy an issue or two, like, right before I was, you know, going with my folks on a plane trip to visit family out of state or something. Mm-hmm. And actually, now that I think about it, you said that was a Sega, like, touring event for Sonic 3?
No. It was just like it was like one of those, like, Nick Arcade kind of things. It wasn't actually like one of the pre-existing Nickelodeon game shows. It was something built into Universal Studios that they would have for people touring Nick, and they had like a video game challenge like Nick Arcade, and they happened to have Sonic 3 as the one for it at the time. So
okay, I got confused because a couple months ago I read through Console Wars, the Sega versus Nintendo, like, kind of retelling, and they tell a lot of stuff about.
You mean Aoi Sekai Chushin Day? That one, you've read through that? Yeah. Coming soon to DVD. Carry on. Sorry.
No. It's actually a book, Console Wars, Sega, Nintendo, and the Battle That Defined a Generation by Blake Harris. Okay. It's basically a like behind the scenes look back at the 90s Sega versus Nintendo console wars, and kind of from the perspective of Sega, how they tried to reposition the Genesis, the impact Sonic had, and kind of a lot of really cool behind the scenes stories from both sides. I highly recommend it if you are at all into retro video games. And they had a lot of stuff about, like, you know, some of the marketing stuff behind the tours that they would do for, like, Sonic Tuesday and getting the Genesis road shows going and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it just kind of reminded me of that.
They used to do that. They used to do that at, like, malls and shit, right? Like,
yeah, that kind of mall tour type thing.
Well, because also wasn't the whole plan for, like, before the shit happened with the plan of this, weren't they fucking gonna have, like, Michael Jackson, like, promote Sonic 3, like, in addition to, like, him doing the music and all that stuff?
I believe there was some he was going to do some promotion of that as well, but it also, like, you know, stuff like Sonic Tuesday, which was, you know, a kind of groundbreaking thing, because that was the first time that there had been, like, a worldwide launch on the same day of a video game in all territories. So, like, that was unheard of at the team. So,
well, because also they built two, like, in the U.S., right? That was when, like, Yuji Naka.
They had Yuji Naka and his team had moved to the U.S. after Sonic 1.
That's right.
While Naoto Shima's team was working in parallel on Sonic CD at the time.
Right. Cool. Okay. So that was kind of just my whole experience with it, and I just played the games, watched the show, collected some of the comics and things. The internet for me was still a very, very, very early fixture. Like, at that time, I think it was really just like, oh, it's a place where I go and get cheat codes. And funnily enough, I don't know how much I've gone into this before, but like my early internet days in general. In fact, it goes back to why I went with my screen name. Was very really just Nintendo focused. I was really playing mostly Nintendo stuff at the time on SNES and N64, and looking up a lot of things about like Mario and Kirby and whatever. And then eventually Pokemon, when that was kind of like, that by that point that absorbed my life in the late 90s. So yeah, that was and I guess to kind of set the stage for this. So okay, in fact, I don't think I told this story on the very first Sonic Kirblog I ever did, but fuck it, whatever. So I was at a summer camp. No, I told the story on the summer camp when I did. Fuck it, whatever. It's still hilarious. When I was at a shitty summer day camp called Camp We Love 'Em, I was just creating, like, I was just in some weird experimental mood, and I had, like, kind of probably early versions of, like, the balancing act characters or whatever at the time, so it wasn't that I was, like, being uncreative. I was just, like, coming up with weird bullshit. But I had an idea I was coming up with, like different sets of, like, red, blue, and green characters, and for some reason I was like, I'm gonna make a green Sonic character, and...
is this the birth of...
Oh, yeah, no, I was just like, I know... what if there was a green version of Sonic, and he, instead of running on the ground really fast, he jumped through the trees.
Yes!
Through the treetops. So literally, I made how so incredibly fucking clever, a green Sonic. He didn't have any kind of outfit or any kind of special thing. He was just literally a green Sonic. And his name, Luke, do you remember?
How could I ever forget Tree Sonic?
Who can't wait to play as him in fucking Sonic Forces coming later this holiday season, 27th.
There's a reasonable chance you can make him. I'm just saying, Hedgehog is one of the species.
I'm tempted, but my God, just the stigma, like the stigma within a stigma for God knows how many reasons. Nonetheless, yeah, that was, and here's the thing too, I had no idea at all that there was that this was like a thing that people did. And it's the same thing with when I made Kirbifer too. I've told that was the very first Kirblog I ever did, or one of the first I ever did, was making the Kirbifer character when he was literally an albino Kirby with a fucking Link hat on. I didn't know that this was
putting a Link hat on an original character. That's dumb.
But seriously, I really didn't know that it was a thing where OCs were basically recolored video game characters until I went to the Fallout Shelter forum, and actually that was kind of right around when I got back into Sonic, because that was, I think, early 2000s or so, right before TTA existed in my kind of early days of doing animation and shit on Newgrounds. I was getting Sonic Adventure 2 for the GameCube, and then eventually got Sonic Adventure DX, which was a game that I acknowledge the existence of, I guess.
Sonic Adventure DX was the first game I ever rented from GameFly, and I'm still a subscriber 15 years later.
You still use it?
Yeah, it's cheaper than buying most other games.
Wow. That's insane. I don't know anybody else who uses that shit. That's incredible. Nonetheless, and then Heroes and all that stuff. So that was the kind of Dreamcast era.
We'll come back to Heroes, because that's an important part of my stories.
Well, no, why don't we switch to you now? So you're let's go to that era again, what they call the Dreamcast era, according to Generations. So that was kind of when you really got into Sonic at that time. Is that right?
Yeah, that was when I jumped headlong back in. Basically, what kind of happened was I was looking up basically tips to get all of the S ranks in Adventure 2 Battle, which I eventually did, to my credit.
My God, how the fuck?
I was a teenager
with
with too much time on my hands. I couldn't go back and do it now.
Dude, so was I, but fucking God, I didn't have the patience for that nonsense.
It took me a solid year, to be fair.
Because even me at 13 being Rouge the Bat has bouncing titties, and I'm invested enough to want to try to get an S rank on all of her stuff and get the fucking whatever her super fan servicey alternate outfit was, and I'm just you know what? Not even for you, Rouge. I'm sorry. I give in. So I stopped. There you go, everybody. So I was weak-willed, as you can tell. Carry on, Luke. Sorry.
Yeah, but while I was looking for, tips and tricks and stuff like that, that was kind of when I started to discover other Sonic fan sites as I was, doing my searches. How I came across, Sonic Stadium, Sonic HQ, fucking Sonic Cult. God.
Oh, good old Sonic Cult.
I mean, you can't say much for their overall tone, but they were a good receptacle of information. I'll say that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I used to browse their stuff a lot back in the day.
Yeah, but that was when I kind of started to get some awareness. But around that time, Adventure 2 came out on GameCube in like March of 2002, and then we wouldn't get DX until summer of 03, and then Heroes in like January of 04. So there was a whole lot of time where I didn't have any new Sonic to play. So like any self-respecting Sonic fan looking to get his fix, I turned to the next best thing. Good old-fashioned fan games.
Early 2000s fan games, too.
Oh, yeah, the best of the best. And to be fair, this was not the first time I had gone down this route, because Sonic was not the first online fandom that I fell into. Before that, I was in the Banjo-Kazooie fandom.
Really?
Which
that had an online fandom?
Oh, yeah. Like, I was browsing, YBK and Debricksters and Banjo Hive and all those sites. Like,
wow.
If anybody knows what happened to the admins of those sites, hit me up. I've always been curious. But
I mean, see, on a side note, I certainly went to some of those sites, but to me it was always just more like conspiracy theories about like the cool kind of mysteries of Rareware games in general.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of
very different kind of fandom compared to like the many sub-sects of Sonic fandom that exist.
I mean, there was a lot of that stuff there, too. Like, I still remember the day when Ice Mario and Subdrag found the Stop and Swap codes for the Sandcastle.
Really?
Like, yeah, like, I was an active browser on Rare Witch Project during that era, and I remember that post going up and, like, trying it out on my N64 and being like, oh my god, it's real.
God, that's crazy, because I remember when those first showed up in Nintendo Power, they found all those, and I was like, oh my god, and it was still like, because Rare was such a fucking enigma back then, compared to now with like Playtonic or whatever, but...
Yeah, and it wasn't until years later that I realized, oh wait, like these are actually, debug codes for the developers to test stuff, and there's like 4,000 other codes for every other thing.
Yeah, for every combination of everything in existence.
Yeah. But, during that time, there was a good, like... 2.5 years between the original Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. And once again, being a devoted fan, I turned to fan games. And there was actually, like, a surprisingly active Banjo-Kazooie fan game, like, development scene. Like, there was actually a set of 3 different fan games that had working stop and swap between them.
Oh my god. Like the ROMs of them or whatever?
Like, they were built in, I think, the Games Factory engine, maybe? But, so it was like, you had BKPC, BKPC2, and It's Mr. Pants 2001. And it's like, if you find something specific in BKPC2, that changes some of the INI files for BKPC1, so you can collect the secret items and then take those to BKPC2.
If only the Sonic fan games could have had fucking, like, internal lock-on technology to do that shit, too, I imagine.
I mean, I think some of them did.
Oh my god.
But, and then, one of the developers of those 3 games actually went on and currently works for Rareware now, so in a weird kind of...
Oh, well.
Yeah, shout-outs to Chris Alcock.
Hey!
But,
so back to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, so back to Sonic, I fell down a similar rabbit hole and spent a lot of that time between releases playing Sonic fan games made in, like, the Games Factory and Click and Play, and... there was stuff like A Tale of Two Sonics and When Tails Gets Bored and a whole lot of Sonic Robo Blast 2. Back before it was a quote-unquote finished game.
Oh. I mean, I'm assuming there were also probably a lot of, like, mods of, like, oh, play as Shadow in Sonic 2 or whatever, that kind of shit.
I mean, I wasn't playing a whole lot of ROM hacks back then. These were all, like, quote-unquote custom-made games using, either ripped or original sprites reassembled in these... kind of broken engines where Sonic went way too fast if you held the button and sometimes got, like, stuck in the roof when he jumped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's Robo Blast 2, which was, a 3D Sonic game built on the Doom engine. because that's a thing.
Fucking like a first person.
That game is still in active development.
Oh, God almighty. It's like the fucking, like, what was that Pokemon fan game that got shut down where I'm like, what are you doing,
Uranium?
guys? Yeah, like, what, 10 years of quote-unquote development? I'm like, what are you doing, guys? You know? Nonetheless. So I guess for me, during that same era, not to retread too much, but I was talking about a little forum called the Fallout Shelter, which I know I've also probably mentioned a few times on some of these Kirblog.
What's your choice?
That was where I went to kind of right after TV Tome, kind of around that same era or so. This would have been like mid-2000s, like 04, 05 or whatever.
I still remember TV Tome. I was a occasional lurker over there, too.
Oh, yeah? Did we ever cross paths on the Pokemon message board?
No, I think I mostly stuck to like the Sonic X message board.
Oh, okay. I might have gone there a couple times, but probably not.
We'll come back to Sonic X.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess by that point, it's kind of around that same era, too. Yeah, I mean, like, when I went to the Fallout Shelter, this was kind of my first understanding of I guess, the sprite world. Because, so on the Fallout Shelter, if you were a person that if you were a human being on that forum, you probably had a sprite comic. Even if also you could draw, and if you could, like, make your own shit, and you had your own original, like, actually original characters, not like original in terms of like fan characters, quote unquote, you still had a fucking sprite comic. You probably did a couple just to fucking jump on the train of being like, I hope everybody likes me, you know, kind of thing. It was absolutely that kind of mentality. And this was in a time where, like, shout out to Alan Sullivan, was Mr. OMA and his comic, The Rogues Gallery. And he had a sprite comic as well, but he was, like, the most popular guy on that forum at the time. Not by any kind of thing other than just he happened to have, like, kind of funny stuff, like, on there. His stuff was the funniest, so it stood out the most to people, as it just happened to be. So he was a guy that a lot of people looked up to. And, you know, not to cause too many people to vomit at the sound of this, but of course this was also in the, I guess the quote-unquote heyday of Fireball 20 XL when that was a thing, and that was about 8,000 different Sonic comics. You know,
see, I wasn't even aware of that at the time. As far as I knew, Fireball was just the back half of the Spriter's resource URL.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, so it was a strange order of, I don't remember exactly. No. Yes, I do. Okay, so here's a little funny tidbit. So TV Tome came first. I got my friend Colin, who is the original bassist of Nylock, from who I went to, like, you know, middle school with in high school. Right. So I got him into TV Tome, and he kind of joined that message board world. And then kind of around that same era I'm talking about, completely separately from the Sonic shit, he was getting really big into just reading like a billion, and I mean a lot of webcomics. Like a lot of webcomics. And he was just going around looking for any and all he could find that were interesting to him. And so in the midst
everybody
of that...
wants to be the next Bob and George.
Well, not even sprite comics specifically, just web... You know, this was also when, like, Mega Tokyo was, like, massively fucking popular, you know, a lot of that stuff. So he was just going around finding anything that he could, and he happened to find the Rogues Gallery. That's right, and it coincided with I was going on Newgrounds a lot at that time. That was my early kind of era of that. And I found, in looking for Mega Man stuff, I found Alan Sullivan's Mega Man Battle Network crossover thing that he did with the Rogues Gallery, which were his own characters that were just like these kind of cute, like, adventure-y type guys. And then I found that, and then I went to his site, found the Rogues Gallery comic, and then I found the forum that was attached to it, which was just a thread on the Fallout Shelter forum. And then... me and Mike Lucas and a bunch of our friends from TV Tome kind of like migrated over to the Fallout Shelter, kind of, you know, betwixt that, and we met all these people, and that was when we found out, because on the TV Tome forum, this is also part of the origin story of how all the Tome character designs, the like very first versions of them came to exist. There were no images on TV Tome, but on the Fallout Shelter there was, and by God, did we learn very quickly that everybody had, for their icons and for their like characters that were like the, you know, like their representatives of who their personas. I don't know why I blanked on that fucking famous word, of course. were either recolor sprites of Mega Man, Kirby, or of course, most commonly, some kind of Sonic character.
Yep.
Most often it was a Sonic 3 sprite, or when Sonic Battle came out, then it was all Sonic Battle sprites. Because then suddenly you could be a Rouge or a Shadow or a Tails or a whatever and have all these different combinations of whatever. Now,
I mean, even before Battle, a lot of people were moving over to the advanced style.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Advanced was a big thing as well. But Battle had like so many like different kinds of ones that people wanted for like
a lot of different poses as well, which was helpful for comic making.
And full disclosure, I think it was really just because I thought, well, maybe just to fit in. And I had Kerbifer by this point, like, the Kirby version of him at that time. But I remember I drew one picture, and no, I do not know where it is, unfortunately. Sorry. I drew one picture of a potential Chris the Fox, just because I thought, well, this is the thing that everybody has, so maybe I'll do it to fit in. So I drew what was going to be a green fox, and literally it was just Tails. It was just a green Tails. And I never posted it anywhere.
I would probably call him Tree Tails, personally.
Tail tree, but I didn't post this publicly anywhere as far as I can remember. I don't think if you go looking back far enough on like my fucking DeviantArt account, you'll be able to find it necessarily. But I remember after drawing it, I was like, no.
Yeah.
So even back then, I was like, I knew better. I was like, no.
I didn't have that self-restraint, but we'll get back to that.
Well, why don't we get to that? I've been going on for a while. Tell us about your fucking Sonic OC that I'm sure you had.
So, this is a good kind of transition point. Chris, do you remember a little show called Sonic X?
Yes. I try to forget it because it's not a good show, and I don't care how many fucking people who grew up with it when they were 10 or whatever tell me that it's a good show. It's not. But yes, I do know that show. Continue.
I mean, I can't forget it because I kind of have to watch it on a fairly regular basis to maintain internet popularity. But
You have to.
It's the only way I can stay famous, Curb. Leave me alone.
Because that's all there really is to life, as I'm sure the Sonic fandom has also taught us. Yes, carry on.
During early to late 2003, Sonic X was the big thing that everybody was obsessed with. It's like, oh, there's a new Sonic cartoon, and everybody's in it. Knuckles is in it, Shadow's in it, Rouge is in it. Everybody, they look so cool. And who's Nazo?
Who's Nazo? Nazo is Edwin Tiong. That's who he is. Carry on.
Just shout out to Shaka X. But, I was one of those people who was just like super hyped for this new Sonic show, and I wanted to know everything about it. And that is why I found myself on a now defunct little website known as sonicanime.net. I don't know if you ever passed through there in your travels.
I don't think I have passed that one, but tell me about it, please.
Basically, it was a Sonic X fan site run by Sonic Remix. It was, basically kind of doing the whole thing where it's trying to find any and all clips of the Japanese version, upload them in shitty quality via QuickTime or Real Player or whatever they had accessible, because Real Player was a thing we still thought was acceptable back then. Screenshots, all that stuff, character model sheets, press releases, whatever they could get their hands on. Everybody was super hype. And maybe a couple of months after the North American release, and we were all kind of like came crashing back to reality, unfortunately, they got hit by a worm that basically like wiped out the whole site.
Ouch. Oof.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was that Basil, one of their recurring members, was like, hey, I have this message board that, doesn't get a whole lot of traffic, but here, I'll set up this little section on my like Envision-free message board, because again, that was a thing we had back then. And, you can use this little corner of my site as basically your temp forums for all your members to, hang out, talk Sonic X, new Sonic games, whatever have you. And I was one of the people who moved over there, and that was kind of when I stopped lurking on that site and actually made myself an account and started actively posting. Mm-hmm. And that was when everything changed.
But the world refused to change.
No, the world kind of changed pretty strongly, and I hold that temp forum and that site in general to be one of the biggest reasons that I am where I am today in terms of my creative output, the people I know, the stuff I do, stuff like that. It was kind of my first real internet community that I was really a part of. And it was where I made my own fan character because that was a thing that everybody else had. And like you, I didn't want to feel left out. And this was also like as Sonic Heroes was about to come out. So everybody was like forming groups of 3 with their fan characters to create their own Sonic Heroes teams. But we'll come back to that. So, Curve, I'm going to send you the very first shitty picture I did of my character made in MS Paint because I was too cheap for Photoshop. I'm gonna send you a picture of that, and I want to just get your first reaction to getting a look at that.
All right. I'm gonna have to be drawing this. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Oh, I'm scared. Oh God.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh God.
So this is Cyberlink.
Yeah.
And he was me like trying.
Oh, I've unraveled so many mysteries for myself now.
And yes, there is a sprite sheet to accompany it. I can't find it right now, but it does still exist. I might send it to you later just for the walls. Jesus. And which was again basically made by doing shitty like image edits in MS Paint because I was a talentless hack who just wanted to do something. And so, for the listeners who can't see, although I'm sure that you'll be seeing the thumbnail, he's basically, Sonic's official Sonic Heroes art with parts of Melee Link's official CG art poorly pasted on top of him, and also the right half of his face is inverted because he's actually part robot.
Delicious.
Yeah, and I actually went through the trouble of looking up bits and pieces of the backstory I wrote for the character back then, and let me tell you, a lot of people say fan characters are just shitty and unoriginal. Mine is shitty and unoriginal by fan character standards. Like
do you want to disclose, or is that too embarrassing?
Oh, I will disclose as much as I can.
As proudly as I can.
Yeah, because this was the worst. This is the worst blend of Mary Sue and the LOL internet random phase of my life that I was in at the time as well. So let's see. It's been a long time, but if I remember correctly, Eggman had trapped Sonic and was using it as a template to synthesize a new model of Sonic robot, like in the OVA, where he's stealing Sonic's essential life data, Hyper Metal Sonic, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly a rip in space-time inexplicably opens up and Link pops out. And just due to future shock and having no idea what is going on, he just starts breaking everything. And inadvertently breaks the tube thing that's containing Sonic and frees him. But in the process, because the transfer process got interrupted and a bit of Link's DNA got into the machine during the process.
Cross-pollinated,
Yeah, basically. It malfunctioned, and the robot it produces ends up being a hybrid between Link and Sonic, but with sentience and free will, because of course. So Sonic is free, he escapes, Link gets pulled back to his own time, and Eggman's I'm not dealing with this, I'm out of here. So this new formed robot clone named Cyberlink ends up basically finishing the job that they started, trashing Eggman's lab. And from that day forward, Cyberlink is on a seemingly never-ending quest to keep Mobius safe and also to meet up with Sonic and Link to return their wallets that they dropped back at the lab. And also he can materialize cheese out of thin air because he got hit by gamma radiation. And also he has a Metal Overlord style transformation and an evil duplicate. And he was best friends with Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy. And there was also some sort of backstory thing involving Meta Knight. And the more I talk about it, the more I'm realizing how bullshit and terrible it was.
The more brain cells I'm losing.
It was bad. I'm not gonna mince words. It was bad.
I have to.
And also, he was a ghost for a while.
I have to ask you a very important question.
Shoot.
How old were you when you came up with this?
13, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was a shitty teenager in the LOL internet random phase. I'm not gonna mince words. I was not a good writer back then.
You were a trash ager, is what you.
Pretty much.
Oh, Christ. Okay.
So, and now you understand why when that Sonic Lost World DLC came out, I could not help but just laugh at the fucking costume.
Oh, God,
change
you're
for
right.
Sonic.
You're right. Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There was
That's
a time. There
beautiful.
was a time where I wanted somebody to extract that model and maybe commission somebody to like edit the textures just for a lull, so I could make him look like Cyberlink.
If I were in your position, I'd be like, I don't know whether to be like fucking like thanking God or being like, why have you forsaken me? It's like, oh God. Okay. Well, I guess on my end, so sort of around, God, I was, I guess like 16 or so around that time. Around the time that I was kind of getting more in depth with this stuff. So this was around, I guess, kind of so with Heroes coming out, Heroes was the first game where I was around to see a lot of, I guess, the first instances of people on the online fandom really getting pissy about the different directions that Sega was taking with the games. Now, I'm sure that this was happening well before that with Adventure 1 and 2.
I mean, there's people who were mad that they changed the art style in Sonic 3. Like, this goes back long.
Oh, I'm sure.
Before us.
Yeah. But, like, the big turning point was, like, because Heroes was not Sonic Adventure 3. It was different, and a lot of people were, I guess, not knowing quite what to expect with it. That was, I know I've talked about this a little bit before with my bit about game trailers. When that went under, I did a little Kirblog about that. But I used to go to my school library in high school and visit game trailers all the time and look at the trailers and gameplay footage of Heroes coming out because I was excited about it. And then when good old fucking Shadow the Hedgehog was officially announced.
I can tell you some stories about that day.
I remember the initial thread, and it was the first trailer where it came out, and it was when it was not the eventual one where we found out about the voices changing. It was the very first one where literally it was so like early on that like Shadow's gun was like clipping through the floor like as he was like kind of walking towards
like
the camera.
That I believe that debut trailer actually came out the same day that Sonic was like brought into the quote unquote video game Hall of Fame.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I believe, because I remember there were two videos that came out. There was like a retrospective to like honor that, and then immediately following that was the shot of like Shadow shooting through the old game footage.
Yeah, and like it was, God, it's so I felt I like in retrospect I felt bad for Sega because I mean I guess I can't feel too bad because it did get like wasn't like a platinum collection on GameCube or something, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, I think it did become like a platinum seller on all three systems.
Yeah, but I felt bad in terms of looking back where like it was clearly a game that was of course designed to like be full fan service to people who wanted a game starring this character and who wanted a game
by committee
with guns. Yeah. But literally, I remember the thread on the Fallout Shelter when it was first revealed with the initial trailer I was just talking about, and absolutely nobody was happy. Everybody was like, is this a fucking April Fool's joke? Like, what in God's name is going on with this shit?
See, when that happened on Sonic Anime, there were so many people making topics in the Sonic discussion board with their own hot takes. They basically like locked and deleted them all and made one thread that's like, yes, we know about the Shadow game. Yes, we know it rocks/sucks. Keep everything in this thread. If you make a separate one, it's going to get closed and deleted and you'll get moderated.
But and then kind of
like they had to do damage control because people were so divided over it.
Yeah. Well, see, on that note too, around that same time was when I was beginning to understand that Sonic has a very complicated fandom in that it has many different sub-sects. Luke, as you know, I'm pretty involved in DBZ fandom, of course, or Dragon Ball fandom in general. Although I say that offhandedly, Dragon Ball has a couple different kind of subsects to it in terms of, like, I guess really when it comes down to how people grew up with it, and then how
did you grow up with original or did you grow up with Z?
Well, I grew up with Z first. what I mean,
that's like the split. I mean, there's people who like the original tone, and there's people who like the kind of tone and stuff they did with Z.
I guess in terms of like how Dragon Ball fans, and I say Dragon Ball in terms of like the whole, like whole of the franchise as it is. The differences in the subsects of that fandom really come down to, as far as I'm concerned, how people choose to spend their fandom in their adulthood, and that comes down to how they enjoy it in their adulthood. So, of course, you have the people who are like, I like the version that I grew up with on Toonami with the edits and the music changes and the name changes and the story changes and the script changes, to you have people who are like, I just like Dragon Ball better. Or the people who are like, I like Kai better because of the dub or because of whatever. I like the Japanese version best because of this and that. Or
I only read the manga.
Yeah, or I only read the manga, yeah, etc. So it comes down to like, it's really, it's mostly one product. It's a very complicated product because of DBZ's weird convoluted history in the US, but it's still, we're mostly talking about one product. Right. And sometimes different interpretations of it depending on like the dub you got, or you know, the time of the dub or the version of that dub you got, etc. When it comes to Sonic, you have people who like the classic games, people who like the modern games, people who like the modern games, people who like the comics, people who like the cartoons, people who like the one specific cartoon, people who like Sat AM, Sonic X, the comics, etc. Take your fucking pick.
And that is the reason why no Sonic anything. And that is the reason why no Sonic anything will be able to please all Sonic fans. Is that everybody, like all the different Sonic like games and media and stuff, everything has gotten so like vastly different from one another in terms of tone, in terms of storytelling, in terms of gameplay style, in terms of like voice acting, characters, all that stuff. And because like everybody got in at a different time, everybody's idea of quote unquote what Sonic is supposed to be is wildly different. So like
that's the crazy thing, dude. You know what's weird about that too? Okay, so you think back about when Sonic Boom was first being developed, the American series, right? So there was it's no secret, they've talked about this a little bit in some behind the scenes stuff about how Sega of Japan was, understandably very, very protective of how visually the characters were represented. They were really insistent on keeping the look of the character, even with the liberties taken in the Boom
I've
version.
seen that concept art.
Yeah, like, but the Sonic Boom characters, I know, haha, stretchy limbs, fucking sports tape, whatever, I get it, whatever. They look like the characters. You look at that version, you still can see it's Sonic the fucking Hedgehog. You get it,
like
right?
You put him through the silhouette test, and even if some things are different, like Buffalo's the enchilada, you can still tell that's Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy.
Yeah. So, and like with the hammer and all that, So, but and I can respect wanting to hold that kind of integrity in terms of like the record, because some people say, and whether this is accurate or not, but it's understandable where this criticism comes from, of Sonic has survived the test of time because of how fucking iconic his design is. And maybe that's true, maybe that's kind of being harsh or an exaggeration. I don't know. That's not really up for me to judge on my own. I certainly think it's a factor at best. But despite that, it is hilarious to me with how much of like, even just as a multimedia presence that he has across like games, animation, toys, comics, etc. And then even with just the
energy
games,
drinks.
how many...
I literally have a Sonic the Hedgehog energy drink sitting in my refrigerator right now.
That's unfortunate. But even with just the games on their own, like how many different kinds of games there are, and the different versions of those different kinds of games. With like, I like 2D Sonic. I like Sonic Advance. No, I only like the classic ones on Genesis. I like this.
I like
one
Sonic
or whatever.
Pocket Adventure.
And or I like the 3D games. Or I like Adventure. No, I like Generations. No, I like Unleashed. No, I like whatever. It's like, oh God Almighty.
I mean, there are some kids who don't know any better that will probably tell you I like Sonic 06.
Well,
because that's what they grew up. Because that's what they grew up with, and back when they first played it, they probably were impressionable enough. They were like, this is awesome. And their little kid brains just looked past all the glitches and brokenness, because that's what our little kid brains did with all the shitty games that we played as kids.
Yeah.
Kid Clown and Crazy Chase is not a good game, but you couldn't have told me that when I was like 5.
No, and you couldn't tell that to my dad or I or on fucking Tasmania for Sega Genesis.
Exactly. Like, if you get in early enough, you're wowed enough by what you're seeing in front of you that your impressionable young mind is willing to overlook any flaws, because you think, maybe I'm just not playing good enough. This thing is awesome.
Yeah, well, no, it's funny because of that, I now when I look back objectively on Sonic games, I feel that my own opinions about what is good and bad about them are justified, because now I can okay, I did grow up with all of these games, and I can criticize and dissect, okay, why did I like this prospect of this game? Like the one that I go back to a lot that okay, this one that because Sonic 06 I have the funny attachment to. I don't actually think that game is good at all.
Right.
Sonic Adventure 2 is a game where there are some redeeming qualities to this. I can justify what is exciting about this game, but also I can justify why it's not a very good game, and it and Sonic Adventure 1 do not hold up very well at all.
Right, I'm in the same boat. Sonic Adventure 2 was probably one of my favorite games of all time, and it's still a very important game to me. I could probably quote most of the script from memory.
Sure,
but
yeah.
At the same
I'm sure
time,
probably most people can.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm still able to look back on it with a critical eye and identify, okay, this doesn't work. This, if they could have gone back and changed this, if they could have gone back and resynced the fucking voices.
Or even I often say this where Heroes is considered very lame by people, but if you want to get just technically in terms of game design, Heroes is a better game than Sonic Adventure 1 or 2 because it's more focused. It has the one play control style, with its, you use the 3 characters or whatever, or it's just but I can look back and say, okay, but also it's pointless having the 4 different campaigns because they're all the fucking same. They're just the different difficulties, and the story is barely existent since there's nothing to be gained from it, where it's well, Sonic Adventure 2 had a cool story, so therefore this was a little more satisfying to get out of it. These are the kind of conversations that I wanted to have at the time, but this is, during that era of the mid-2000s, and then leading into the late 2000s, this is kind of what was happening with the fandom in how I was interacting with it, where I was learning that it was so divisive within divisive in terms of all of these different sub-sects, that it was so difficult to even have a fucking conversation. And especially because, let's not beat around the fucking bush. When you're, a teenager on the internet and either hating on something or defending something that you feel very strongly about, you're not going to have a very intelligent conversation.
No, not at all.
Because you don't have the fucking fortitude and, intelligence and world perspective level to, have a very critical and fair and understanding conversation that won't eventually break out into, you suck, which was a lot of that. Not with me, but what I was.
I still can't help but laugh and roll my eyes every time somebody says the word green eyes.
Fucking A. Or in my case, after Boom came out, blue arms.
Yeah.
In which case I'm just is that really where you draw the fucking line on blue fucking arms?
I draw the line on blue arms because I have to untrain myself from 20 years of drawing it one way.
Oh, God.
You're making it hard for me, Sega.
Well, now Boom's probably going to go the way of the dinosaur before long anyway. So
which breaks my heart because I love that show.
That's a bummer. I'll very much miss Mike Pollock and Roger Craig and all those guys having a consistent funny job.
Yeah, shout out to Alan Denton and Greg Hahn, who are both incredibly nice guys. I met them. They follow me on Twitter, and I'm still not sure why.
Are they people involved with the show?
They are the main writers.
Oh, great. Well, shout outs to them. And I know Bill Freeberger's a really nice guy as well, from what I've been told. Much respect to them. I don't follow the show extensively. I fell a little bit out of it, but you know what? I respect what the crew on that show has been trying to do with it, and more power to you. So, my thing with Sonic Boom, as I've probably said, is that I think that, regardless of what people want to admit about their precious, however they want to interpret these characters, I think that those versions of Knuckles and Amy they've had the most amount of personality that more than Knuckles and Amy have ever had in any of the video games ever. I
can get why some people would be like a little peeved with Knuckles being maybe a bit too stupid, but at the same time, like he's still probably one of the most enjoyable characters on that show. And
sure,
Amy is an actual character beyond Chase Sonic. So
behind I'm the girl, and Knuckles, It's like I get that criticism of like, oh, he's really annoying, so therefore he's not entertaining. I get that. It's more so I compare him to like, well, yeah, but I mean, what was he in the games? I'm Tails too. It's like, I mean, for a while, I was a dick, and then I wised up, and then I was naive and dumb, and now I'm Tails too, because Shadow took my place as the rival guy.
Everybody in the fandom over-exaggerates Knuckles' gullibility in, like, all of their fan projects anyway, so this is just the natural progression.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, so do you see what I mean? This kind of stuff, like, learning these kind of opinions from so many different people, and then I guess me having to sort of formulate my own, that was kind of how it went for me in that era. Like, that's kind of what it all turned into after a while. And so it felt weird to be a Sonic fan. For a while, it felt like it was dirty to be in that world and, like, enjoying stuff. Like, it was like an embarrassment because it was like this stigma that people were getting where, like, you enjoyed it, but, like, not so much that it was secretly, but that it was almost kind of like yeah, I know, it's stupid, but whatever, And also with, going into, the late 2000s to the early 2010s for you and I, with a lot of the friends that we had were all like people who liked Sonic and, and we were always still excited about and cared about what was happening with the next game or so. So like it was... I think, like, for us, like, we tried to... Well, then again, you were more, like, deeply involved because you were doing, like, fan productions and being part of fan sites and communities. I was more kind of on the outside looking into...
Yeah.
Like, the DBZ fandom is what I was, like, fully into in that kind of way.
Yeah,
I was more on the outside.
You were, like, knee-deep in Saiyans and everything.
Yeah, knee-deep on top of them. Yes, in that way. I was always kind of on the outside looking in, and I would frequent, like... Once in a while, I would go to Sonic Cult. There was another. Help me out. What was there? Sonic Stadium is the main one that I still go to. There was another like one that was kind of like it had like kind of a black background to it, and they reported on stuff a lot. But they would report on other Sega things sometimes. Do you remember which one that might have been?
It's not. It wasn't like. Was it Sonic Retro?
Sonic Retro was the one. Yeah, I used to go there. I just kind of forgot to keep going back after a while.
I still peek in on Retro every once in a while because they are the most active, like, programming and hacking communities. So they're always making really cool shit with, like, mods and custom engines. That's where, Taxman and Stealth got their start before they started doing, the ports and Sonic Mania and stuff like that.
Which went into the Christian Whitehead studio and all that, right? Yeah. Is that him?
Yeah, Christian Whitehead is Taxman.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And like they were kind of Sonic Cult and Sonic Retro were both to me they were like, oh, this is where I get leaks.
Yeah, pretty much.
For better or worse. Sorry. But I would go there for reports on a lot of new things. In fact, I think I might have talked about this a little bit before. No, I talked about this on when I did the Sonic 06 playthrough with Jesse and Mike on Controller.
Which I've been thoroughly enjoying when you put it out, the once a year or whatever.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully go back and do Silver if I get to come visit at the end of the year again.
Yeah, will you try to get through just Silver, or are you going to try and go for the last story too?
We'll do the ending too. Yeah, we'll try to go a little longer and make
good
some
luck
more
with
time
that.
For it. Anyway, so we. I used to go to Sonic Cult, and they had the original game script for Sonic 06 that came out.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. That was the one with the character bios on it, too, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
With,
and I remember for a
Stink
while...
Trunks from DBZ and Blaze being sensitive about her chest.
And some of that stuff was actually what made me think, like, this isn't real. This can't be real.
I was convinced it was fake.
Yeah, just because of that kind of stuff. But, I mean, you know what? now that I've worked a little bit more in games and I know what it's like behind the scenes with people, I don't think it's that weird, because I think it's like, look, they know that Dragon Ball has been a big influence, on Sonic motifs in many, many ways for many, many years.
I have no idea what you're talking about. The Chaos Emeralds and Super Sonic are a completely original concept, not derivative of any previous works whatsoever.
I mean, it's not a fucking mystery. So I think that, like, since that was meant to be for internal purposes only, from what it looks like, especially with like all the Japanese like cataloging of everything and all that stuff, and it looks like, from what I can see now that I've also recorded on games too, it certainly looks like how a recording script would be too, with how the character dialogue is matched up and everything too. But nonetheless, I remember reading through that and kind of I was always trying to like hunt through, because I had this weird like fixation on Sonic 06, knowing full well that it was terrible. Because like before I knew it was terrible, I bought my fucking 360 specifically for that game because I was excited about it. And I got suckered in by this one magazine. I forget what it was, but they gave it like I think like an 8 out of 10.
Edge.
Yeah, and they were told, like, oh no, the loading shit and the glitches are going to be fixed. And they were like, oh, well, then I guess it's kind of like Sonic Adventure 3. And like, well, not so much. So, But, and then I guess, from there on out, what I learned was I reached a point with myself, and maybe you can kind of agree with this too. Once I had kind of staked my opinions, internally, I'm like, okay, where do my tastes lie with what I find to be good and bad within the Sonic world? And like everything from the games, the cartoons, the comics, everything else that comes with it. What do I find good and what do I find not for me? And I think once I reached that point, I found peace. I found peace within myself to just be like, you know what? I'm a Sonic fan, and I'm a very tempered Sonic fan with specific ideals of what it is that I find enjoyable and fun, and I guess, I don't know, going in a positive direction for everything. So, which I think is good. So
yeah, I can see that. Like, admittedly, like you talked about how you kind of felt like dirty to be a Sonic fan for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't think I ever hit that phase, mostly because I kind of like so heavily associated the franchise with like the community that I had become a part of on SA.net and, the friends I had made there. So I never really felt bad about it, because in the end, that was, how I got to meet all of these like really cool people that I had grown close to. And, as time went on, of course, I kind of developed a more critical eye for Sonic related stuff, and I was better able to kind of look at it objectively, independent of my own fanboyism or everybody, crying foul, and think, okay, what's good about this one? What's bad about this one? Is this one that I want to, stand behind? Like, I think that, spending time on those Sonic message boards and being able to interact with other people and kind of, have those debates in a quote-unquote safe setting where, everybody was a fan of the series, and like it or not, even if you had completely divergent opinions on whatever game, you guys were still pals. Because at the time, it was a relatively big community, but it was still pretty, like, condensed. Like, you saw a lot of the same names popping up, so it had, like, a feeling of everybody knew everybody, even if, you didn't interact on a very frequent basis. So,
yeah,
being able to interact with those people and kind of look at those things from everybody's perspective and get everybody's opinions on whatever was new at the time, I think really helped me to develop that more critical eye and kind of reevaluate where I stand with the franchise as a whole and how I feel about it.
Yeah. And I think like for me, it's been good because like it's made me very excited to play both Mania and Forces.
Absolutely.
Because like I've not played the ports that Taxman and his team worked on, but I'm hearing nothing but great things about how the controls of Mania are. The levels certainly look cool. I find in retrospect Studiopolis as a level hilarious.
I laughed at that the moment I saw that because I knew the joke.
I've been there now. It's lovely.
Nice.
Shout out to them. And then Forces. Generations is one of my, if not maybe my favorite Sonic game in general. So I'm looking forward to making my, I don't even know, I'm leaning towards bunny or bird. I don't know yet. Maybe I'll be both. Maybe I'll be
you've got like 6 months to figure that out.
That's true. Yeah, and I think the other thing too. Okay, so like with this like the hero, the custom hero thing for forces, right? So I actually think it was a really good idea, similar to how early Nintendo got out it's called the Wii. Get your jokes out now. Go ahead, have fun. Okay, and then by the time E3 is out,
we'd like to thank all of you who like the new name. All two of you.
Yeah. And then by the time, okay, E3, time for us to actually start showing some more stuff about the game. I think that them showing it ahead of time of E3 was a smart idea.
Yeah.
So everybody can get their fucking jokes out now, and then they'll peter out, Pardon me. That's disgusting. Talking about this is disgusting, and also my gross nose noises. Anyway,
but as long as we're on the OC topic, I do want to kind of loop back to my experiences, because there are a couple more stories to tell.
Oh, sure.
So, like I said, everybody, this was the Heroes era, so everybody was forming teams. I formed my team with two others named Jez MM and Mock the Hedgehog. Ironically, Jez's OC was also a Green Tails, so...
Oh, well, it was actually me the whole time.
Oh, I knew it. I knew you were secretly British. But
it's me. Hello, it's me. Whatever the fuck his name was, you just told me. I forgot it.
Right, but we formed Team Crazy, a.k.a. Sonic Weirdos. And I think we were one of the most active, quote-unquote, teams on that site. Like, there were multiple Sprite comics. I did some, Jez did some, Mock did some. Actually, Mock did probably more than both of us put together. And just basically our fan characters getting into wacky shenanigans and eventually evolving into, goofy roommate sitcom, which is probably where those characters were best served anyway. I turned into Don Patch for a while because of a joke. But then, other than the Sprite comics, of which there were many, the other thing I did a lot of back during those days was full-on RPing. Yeah, I was one of those people.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so there are three that come to mind because I have documents buried somewhere in my computer of the time I tried to take all of our posts and combine them together into rewrite them into prose and turn them into fanfics. But there was Tech Crazy RPG, which was a 16-part multi-epic, which was just us getting all of our lol random out of our system and just being completely insane. There was the Basil Show, where we went on a road trip adventure recruiting 4 kids characters to save them from shitty dubbing. And then there was probably the longest running one we did, which was Fear Factor, which was a Devil May Cry inspired paranormal series where you're hunting demons and time traveling and all sorts of weird shit. And it was completely ridiculous looking back. I was not a good writer at the time, but at the same time, a lot of it helped me to kind of develop my creative voice. I got used to writing for characters that were not my own because we had developed a level of friendship that we all felt comfortable, writing for each other to help the story flow. And, we'd do these long posts of dialogue exchanges with each of our characters. And, it gradually helped me become a much less shitty writer than I was. And I was real bad at the time, but just the extra experience, it got me typing, it got me, practicing world building and all that stuff. And it's a lot of the reason why I felt as comfortable as I did writing what would eventually become the first few episodes of Sonic F. And I still keep in touch with a lot of the friends that I made back then, mostly through, social media. Jez and I still frequently banter over Twitter. I told him that I was going to be doing this, and he and I ended up digging up an archive.org thing from the temp forums that has long since vanished, looking back on our shitty writing and being God, we were so dumb back as teenagers. And I still keep in touch with some of the others. believe it or not, that is actually the forum on which I first met Game Buddy, who has become one of my best friends and my co-conspirator on Sonic F. And probably the weirdest experience I had was, there's two. One was sometime last year, Sonic Remix, the admin, started a Facebook group for former members of the site because she still keeps in touch with pretty much all of us. So I'm seeing, the real faces of all these people, the real faces and real names of all these people that I only knew from like their screen names, like Kevin the Man and Niles and Lucky the Hedgehog and all these other people. And it's like, wow, this is basically the behind the scenes reel from my teenage years. And then the other crazy thing is that last year, for the first time, well, I guess technically the second time, but for the first real time, I got invited out as a convention guest at Sonic Revolution in LA. And it probably would not have happened if not for the fact that the con chair is none other than one Sonic Remix, who, has stayed very aware of my creative output and was like, yo, you do cool stuff. We want to have you at this as a featured guest at this thing where we have like actual people from the stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Who am I to say no?
Who are how many people have you known since like those early days of like the beginning of this discussion that like you still keep in touch with like fairly frequently?
I mean, I still regularly talk to maybe 4 or 5 and then occasionally with another 7 or 8, and then just very infrequently with probably about 40 total, just based on whoever decides they want to post in the Facebook group or whatever. Like, a lot of them have gone on to do other stuff. Like JezMM is now a occasional contributor to Sonic Stadium. Game Buddy, of course, is writing stuff with me and doing his own stuff as well, getting professional voice gigs and whatnot. And, some of them actually ended up like working with me at Sonic Paradox. Like Sonic Remix does stuff with them, Game Buddy does stuff with them. Dave Gonzalez, who has gone through like 6 or 7 different usernames in the time I've known him, he was actually the one who animated the very first short in the very first volume of the Sonic Short series, and then later went on to do the intro sequence for Sonic F. And I still keep in touch with him fairly frequently. And it's just been really weird that I've kind of grown up with these people that for years and years I never knew their actual names of, but I still consider them very close friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? I think that like, and like similarly, like I know I've known Vegito EX, Mike Clippery for a really long time, and we've grown to become friends like from that community over many years, which has been great. And a lot of the folks from Konzenshu and all that.
Yeah.
I think that there's merit to a lot of that within those communities, and I think it does make me happy to see that kind of stuff with people. I think, when it comes to like scoffing at that stuff, and sometimes it's like, I get it, where it's either like, oh, that's weird, or like, oh, that's toxic. It's just because I've seen this a lot more, especially with how Tumblr culture has evolved. And I don't even think that that's the appropriate word for it, but it's there's going to be shitty and weird and toxic people in every fandom, no matter what you do, honestly. I think that there's still, mostly a lot of good to come out of that stuff. And even the weird stuff, like, can come from good. I mean, like, even, like, it's easy to make that joke about the, fucking DeviantArt, Sonic fandom, the game. It's like, well, sure. But also, that's cool that, like, we get to have a fucking character creator. Sonic's never had that before.
Yeah, it's like this thing that has been part of, like, the fan culture for years and years and years is finally, like, getting a level of official representation. I'm all for that. Like, I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and it's a staple of modern game design to have, like, a customizable player character, too, for certain things.
Well, look at how everybody geeked out over Dragon Ball Xenoverse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, for hell, like, to some people, that is, like, the coolest thing about the game is that you just get to make a fucking fan character, not even the game itself, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing either, but, it is what it is. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. And again, like, with knowing that I have my kind of, I don't even want to call it like a cautious sense of. I call it tempered. Of like, I consider myself a Sonic fan. I'm not ashamed to say that, but also I have my very specific opinions and viewpoints and methods of enjoyment when it comes to Sonic, and that is what has allowed me to become, in a good way, excited for both of the new games that we have coming our way.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, and like I've made it clear, like Cyberlink was a shitty fan character when he first started, and but in a way, I still have a lot of affection for the little guy because in a lot of ways, he kind of shaped what my, how I interact with people on the internet, how I've kind of developed my creative voice. And, everybody's got to start somewhere. And even if that somewhere is a place of ridiculousness, like, it's still a starting point. And all for people, if you want to make your own Sonic fan character, go for it. You might find that, it could lead you to further developing your, artistic abilities, your writing abilities, your storytelling abilities, whatever have you, and ultimately lead you to becoming more experienced and just a more, like, fleshed out individual as a whole.
I mean, look at also how many really fucking talented people have gone on to like do official Sonic stuff.
Oh my god, yeah, Fandom. Absolutely. Like basically the entire Archie Comics team is as of now is kind of birthed from the fandom. It's the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's really cool to see that happen so much and to see like
look at Mania
in the future. Yeah. Yeah, Mania is like a massive staple.
Mania is entirely fan driven except for, Sega putting their stamp on it basically.
Yeah. So, I think it's a good time to be a Sonic fan. I think this is a good year to be a Sonic fan in many ways.
I think that, things are more hopeful now than they have been in a while. Like people who have no interest in Sonic, those clips of Boom that get put up on Twitter, everybody retweets those, even the people who have no affection for Sonic whatsoever. The comics are better than they ever been, assuming that, they're still around.
We'll see how that ends out. The comics had a fantastic run.
Yeah, and hopefully they still will. Knock on wood. But and then I feel like the fact that we have two games that are going like two completely divergent routes, but are in both their own ways, are super exciting for completely different reasons. Like that's super cool to me. And even just little stuff like the Sonic Pack and Lego Dimensions was absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm not just saying that because I literally own every figure they've put out so far, but that's neither here nor there. But, it's a really exciting time to be a Sonic fan because some of the stuff that they're putting out is better than we've had in years. And it's, I feel like a lot of people are really turning a corner. Even the ones who kind of had that distaste earlier are at least tentatively, if not openly, excited for what is coming down the pipeline.
Oh, shiz. Well, I think that's kind of a good place to end things off.
I do have one last very brief story.
Okay.
So, late 2006, early 2007, there was an author named Turrican, named after the fantastic Amiga game, that did like a trilogy of fanfics set in, Silver's timeline. I think Metal Mastermind, Predestination Pretorius, and I think Chaos Calamity or something like that. But I was actively reading those as he was putting out chapters. They were really well written, really interesting stories. But what I got really interested in was that a certain user actually decided, hey, I'm going to do like a full narration of all 20 chapters of Metal Mastermind, doing all the character voices and everything. And I listened to his whole thing. It's like, wow, this guy is really good. I should like start talking to this guy. He and I could make some really cool stuff if I, me writing, him doing voices and stuff. That guy was Game Buddy. And then we ended up doing like pre-scripted podcasts as a official site feature. We got maybe 3 or 4 episodes in where we were just like, doing occasional reviews of stuff, pre-scripted like comedy bits. Like I think there was one time where I pretended to drop a steamroller on him because that was a thing we did. Lol random, as I said before. But we decided, this podcast thing is kind of okay. I feel like doing something different. Like, that Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge thing is kind of cool. I kind of wish we could do something like that for Sonic X. And I'm like, I have this 2-year-old script from pre-Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge. Yes, that actually is true. Of like a bunch of parodies of Sonic X episodes. If I rework these a little, and that is how Sonic F got started.
And sadly, that was also around the time when about 8,000 other people also attempted to do a Sonic X abridged video parody of some kind.
This is true. That was
a sad day for everybody.
We went through five different incarnations with just us doing the voices and put them up on like YouTube and Dailymotion. They kept getting taken down. And then, the final time in 2010, we decided, okay, if we're going to do this, we kind of gave up. And then somebody else asked me to knew of Sonic F and asked, hey, I like your stuff. I know you're not doing it anymore. I'd like you to help kind of do maybe voices or script writing for my thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And that ultimately ended up never materializing. And I called Jeremy up and he was like, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get to do this. I kind of miss doing this. I want to revive Sonic F, but if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So, we called up friends that we knew from other Sonic projects that we had worked on, folks in Sonic Paradox, Falero, Mystic Pyro Freak, Kage Chihashi, names like that. And we pulled together that first episode of Sonic F back in, April of 2010, and we haven't looked back since, even if it's, takes forever for us to put out an episode. It's still as fun for us now to make new ones as it was back then.
It's excellent. Well, where can people go check that out?
Well, hang on. I've got a lot of plugs to go through. You can follow me on Twitter at Cyberlink420. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. No, I don't smoke weed. It's my birthday. Sonic F is youtube.com/Sonic F series. I mentioned Sonic Revolution, the convention, before. I'm going to be going back this year. It's going to be in Whittier, California for one day on June 11th. I'm going to be there. The Boom Writer's going to be there. A couple of the comic artists, Tyson Hess, Evan Stanley, are going to be there. A bunch of other Sonic fandom guests, Belena Productions, Tails Channel, Emmy Jones, they're all going to be there. And, knock on wood, we're probably going to have a new Sonic F episode to show. So if you're near the LA area, head to Whittier and check it out on June 11th.
Which incredibly interesting episode of the Sonic X series are you parodying in this next one?
The next one is going to be, we're going to combine the one where Eggman builds the egg fort and the one where they go deep sea diving for a Chaos Emerald into a single episode, because the less time we have to spend on any amount of Sonic X, the better.
Wow.
And
thank you for actually abridging it then.
Yeah,
carry on.
Yes. You'll like what we've got going forward for the later stuff. The Sonic Adventure arc is going to be fun. But and then on a non-Sonic related note, I'm also part of Magic of the Mundane, a D&D podcast that comes out every 2 weeks, where I play Vincent DeLorean, the half-elf wizard, and Ken Nisoka, the neurotic teenager. You can find that on iTunes or follow us at MOTMcast on Twitter. New episode just went up kind of late this past Monday, and we're probably going to have a new one up next Monday as well to get back on schedule. So check that out.
Cool. All right.
And maybe, just maybe, I might have a little something new to show off later this year.
Oh, fuck.
Yay!
Jesus. So, I guess with that said, everybody, thanks for watching and listening and hopefully enjoying. Excuse me, Morty. In the comments below, please tell us your stories, if you have any that you are comfortable with sharing about your time spent on the internet or off the internet in the Sonic the Hedgehog fandom. And also, very important, please, absolutely, if you're going to share a story, leave a comment about which fucking animal you are going to be. Which fucking animal, not which animal you'll be fucking.
There's a sex of the fan in that will probably tell you that too.
For sure. Please let us know what your OC is going to be when Sonic Forces comes out this 2017. I swear to God, I'm not sponsored. Luke, thank you for joining me.
It is my genuine pleasure.
Later. I believe that the next Kirblog after this is going to be a review of the lovely Season 5 of Samurai Jack with a new guest. So look forward to that if I'm able to get them and we can record that.
So make sure you tune in.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you all next time. Bye.
I'm out of here.